Good evening and welcome to this, our fifth THST official vlog podcast, whatever you want to call it. This evening I'm joined by our regulars. We call you regulars now, I guess, can't we?
Wow.
Rachel, Martin and Rob White. Sadly no Anthula tonight, she's working. But we are joined by our THST official secretary, Pete Haine. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you. It's good to be finally making the appearance.
You're very welcome, and it's great to have you with us. So this evening we're going to be talking. It's a very exciting subject because this month is our AGM, our annual general meeting. That's on Tuesday, the 16th of February, and that's why we've got Pete here to tell us a bit more about that. But before we get started, Pete, I guess we should find out a little bit more about yourself and what your role entails within the trust and how and why you got involved.
Yeah, sure. I was basically looking for something to occupy my time after I'd retired. I'd been working in the civil service 43 years, experienced in land law and compliance, but all through that time where work allowed me to, I'd been going to watch Tottenham. Started in '69, my first game, season ticket holder on and off since 1971. And I'd heard about the trust, and I'd bumped into Cat at away games and in the pub and chatted about what the trust was up to and what it was doing. And I started off by doing a little bit of research on kick-off times and the difficulty of travelling fans to get to away fans by British Rail. And then said to Cat, I'll be interested in joining the board. And they said, how do you fancy being secretary? We appear to have a vacancy coming up. What do you think? And I said, well, yeah, okay. Didn't really think too much about it without realising how much work it involves. It's certainly been keeping me busy during lockdown, I'll say that. So, yeah, I've been secretary since 2017 now. Also take a leading role in community and charity for the trust. So, yeah, enjoy it, really enjoy it.
Thanks very much, Pete. We're going to go around as we normally do, as regular listeners and viewers will know, and ask a few questions. So I think you're up first, Rob, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Hi, cheers, Pete. Thanks for that. Just really start with the basics, really. What is an AGM, and why do we have them? Why do we, as a trust, have to have them, and what function do they fill? Really, that's my.
Yeah, I think most people probably don't realise. Yeah, most people probably don't realise that the trust is, in effect, a company, although it's with a very much lighter touch than a company. So, a company would obviously be subject to the Companies Act. We're subject to something called the Cooperative and Community Benefit Societies Act, which is like a second tier. Which relates, as it says, to cooperative societies, community societies, or people set up for mainly charitable purposes. So the legislation that applies to us is very much a light touch, but we are still obliged to have a secretary, a company secretary. In effect, that's the role that I undertake. So the main role of the secretary is really to be the board's guardian, to make sure that we adhere to legislation and to the set of rules that we operate under, and to try to make sure that we remain on track as to what our objectives are. So, for example, it's, you know, to try to help footballing fans of Tottenham. How much further that reach then goes beyond that to help the community within which Tottenham operates. There's a fine line between getting involved in political events, which we sometimes get drawn into for one reason or another, For example, some of the major redevelopments in the local area clearly cause issues for local residents and local community. That's not something that we as a trust, although we might as individuals, but we as a trust don't take a position on. Whereas raising funds for the local community or local charities in the community, I see that's the right side of the line that we can then operate in. So we're taking a non-political stance. We're saying the community that our football club lives in, we can help in other ways and means by raising funds, supporting, etc., etc. So going back to the AGM, the annual general meeting, we, in the same way as a company, have to report to our stakeholders, basically members, every year. So we provide a report of the activities that we've undertaken. We provide a financial report on what we've done with the income that we've received and what we've spent it on. And basically the members can question what we've done, why we do it, why have you chosen to do that as opposed to this? Why have you spent X instead of Y? Why have you supported that charity instead of this charity? So it's an opportunity for the members to say to us, we think you're doing a good job, or we think you're really following the wrong lines. You know, this is what you should get involved in, this is what you should be doing. So there's an opportunity at every AGM for any member who's a fully paid up member to put themselves forward to join the board. All they need to do is to find 2 other members to put their name forward and to sponsor that nomination. And then that goes to the membership to see if everybody agrees with that person joining the board. So there are rules surrounding who can be a member of the trust. So there are some limitations. For example, it's a fairly obvious one. You've got to be a supporter of the football club. Doesn't mean to say you have to be a season ticket or a season ticket holder or a member, but clearly you need to be a supporter of the football club. What you clearly don't want to happen for any supporters trust like this is be infiltrated by 500 Arsenal fans, for example, which would cause some difficulties, I'd suggest. So what else? We're also governed by rules. They are model rules that are created by the Football Supporters Association. They basically govern what we can do, what we can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about how much notice we need to give for an AGM, how large our board can be, what are the permanent posts, i.e. we have a treasurer, myself as secretary, and clearly we need a chair. We currently operate with 2 co-chairs. So those rules, I think, go to about 120 different rules, very, very detailed.
Yeah.
And part of my role, obviously, is to make sure that anything we do also adheres to the rules. So we don't try and do something that falls outside of the scope of our rules. So they cover things like, as a company, we also have to have a registered office. So we have a registered office, for example. Our finances, once they've gone through explanation and scrutiny by the members, are then sent to the Financial Conduct Authority, who approves them. I have to fill in like it's almost like 50 questions in support of the finances, and they go to the Financial Conduct Authority and they're posted on their website under our name, along with the rules and also board membership, all those sorts of details. So the AGM really is the opportunity for the membership to ask us questions and to challenge what we do.
Brilliant. Do you know, Pete, is it a legal requirement? I've just thought of that as you were talking.
Yeah, it's a legal requirement.
Legal requirement as a.
Well, it's a requirement in our rules.
Right.
But in the same way, as a company has to have an AGM.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what I was thinking.
You would have to.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. Brilliant. I've learned something.
And I mean, Pete, I know you are an absolute mine of information on all of these matters, and I'm very confident that all the members will see we've got the right person in the job. So thank you for all that information. Now, obviously, normally the AGM, it's quite a sort of, I mean, it is a big event in the year, and normally we look forward to the opportunity to meet with loads of our members, but they're normally very well attended up in town. We get the democratic process completed, and then we all adjourn to the nearest hostelry for networking, in inverted commas.
Exactly.
You know, it's a really lovely occasion. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different this year as we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know that you and Kat and Martin have done a lot of work to be able to make the process safe, fair, effective. Can you run us through a little bit about how this is going to look this year?
Yeah, as you say, it's going to be very different. I mean, it was fairly quick, soon after the 2020 AGM, that we went into lockdown. And as you know, we've been holding our meetings over Zoom, and it works quite well. Other systems are obviously available. I think this is the first time I've used Teams, so it's interesting to see how that operates. CMS were so kind in offering their facilities for us. They really looked after us for certainly all the time that I was secretary. But they contacted us, I think it was early April, and said, look, I'm really sorry, but given the pandemic, we are going to have to withdraw this facility for you. Understandably, they don't want hundreds of people coming into their offices. So they've gone to lockdown, and they've been very close and very careful about who can actually visit their offices. So it was then a matter of, really, the longer the year that went on, the more began to realise that we were not going to be able to hold an AGM at CMS or anywhere else. You know, we started thinking about other alternatives. Could we do it in the Antwerp Arms? Could we do it elsewhere? Anyway, but the longer it went on, the more we realised that it was going to have to be a virtual AGM in some way, shape or form. So started thinking about, is Zoom, is it feasible to hold an AGM over Zoom? The first one I saw was for the Antwerp Arms. As you know, we, the trust, are shareholders in the pub, as well as some individuals on the board I know, as I am. So I attended that on my behalf as a shareholder, and also on the trust behalf as a shareholder. And they did it over Zoom. It worked quite well. They did it as a meeting whereby you had 40 people. I'm sure most people have been on a Zoom meeting over lockdown. But to see a Zoom meeting with 40 or 50 people, and then to manage that when people want to talk and don't want to talk, and when people are allowed to vote and vote, etc., didn't work very smoothly. So I knew it could be done over Zoom, and I know you can put polls on Zoom. So in other words, you could vote for the resolutions and be recorded in that way. But then it was a question of, well, okay, well, I don't think that would work if we had 50, 60 people in the Zoom meeting, all trying to talk at once, talking over each other. I think that would be unmanageable. And it certainly didn't work for the Addy. They got their business done, but it wasn't it wasn't a pleasant experience. Kat then put a word out on the Premier League network that we work with. So all of the Premier League sides are on an email loop. There's a network, they meet once a month, but just basically put a shout out to say, is anybody thinking about doing a Zoom AGM, or has anybody got any ideas about what we're going to do for their AGM? And the good people at Fulham stuck their hands up and said, we're thinking of doing one. We're having a bit of a practice. Would you like to sit in on it? So Kat and I sat in on a practice Zoom meeting, and also then Kat sat in as an observer at their actual AGM, and they did it a lot better. They did it through the webinar option on Zoom, and it worked really well. So Kat, Martin and I decided that that's what we would go down. So we purchased a Zoom subscription for the trust, and I've been playing with that to my heart's content to try to work out how to hold an AGM. I'm not a technophobe. I do like technology and I do get on pretty well with it, but I've been struggling with it. I've watched endless Zoom tutorials. I tried to launch a Zoom meeting for the trust board last week, which failed miserably. I did find out fairly quickly what it was. I was trying to run it on my laptop, which hasn't got an email account attached to it. So every time it was trying to find email addresses, it was bombing. Now, crack that. And last night we actually went through the basics with the three of us as to how that Zoom AGM will actually operate. So to cut a very long story short, we can use the poll option in Zoom to vote on the resolutions. We can set 3 tiers of entry into the Zoom meeting. There'll be the hosts, that'll be myself, Kat and Martin. There'll be participants who will be the rest of our board, and then there'll be attendees who will be the people coming in to look and watch the AGM. And what will happen is, if you're an attendee, what you will see is the talking heads from the board. Your heads won't be displayed, your video will be muted and sound will be muted. However, what we can do is when questions arise from members, we can unmute them and set their video on so that they can then ask questions. So, for example, some of the resolutions will say, anybody want to ask any questions of, we have a new nomination for a board member. Do you want to ask this individual any questions? You've seen his resume. Do you want to ask him any questions? And then if someone sticks their hand up or asks a question on chat, we can pick that up. We can unmute them, unblock their video camera, and then they can ask the question. And then we can subsequently remute them and reblock their camera. So all of those processes can be done. We're hoping that if everything goes well and the technology works and we get through the official business of the AGM, we will then be able to set up and open up for Q&A, so that if any of our members have any questions they want to ask of any of the board members, again, stick your hand up, ask the question in chat, we will then unmute you and we will then open up the question and the dialogue so that everybody will be able to hear what the response is. And of course, if we can't answer the question on the night, we will get an answer to the individual as and when we can.
Yeah, brilliant. And I mean, I suppose one good thing about it is that more people will probably be able to attend, because obviously it's not geographically, it can be people from anywhere in England, around the world, whatever. Yeah. So maybe there's more people. But let's hope that all this hard work is a great success for this year's AGM, but that we'll never have to use it again.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, because there is something behind. It's not just the official business, and it's not just the Q&A that everybody learns from. It's the chats that go on in the corner of the room before the meeting, after the meeting, or in the pub afterwards. So it's that I think we all miss football. We all miss going to the lane. What I miss is the chats in the pub, the chats in the ground, bumping into people you've not seen for a while. And it's that sort of thing that really gets me, You can't replace that with Zoom. I've seen various sort of Zoom chats around a football match, and not for me.
No.
Yeah,
just
I agree.
I certainly miss the chats in the pub, whether it's around a football match, an AGM, or just anywhere.
Yeah.
Just miss pub.
Yeah, I've found myself talking to my dog much more than I really should. I'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've talk to myself a lot more.
I've seen Pete's Facebook pictures as well. I know he's got a keen eye for some craft ales, and so I know there's a hobby in the making there. Pete, obviously on February the 16th, we'll all be there. if there are any members listening, watching this, who are thinking, actually, I want to play a part in this, I want to be involved, what do they need to do between now and February the 16th to take part, to join us?
Yeah, well, I mean, timetables, a lot of it really hinges upon when and where you review this vlogcast, whatever we're calling it now. The date for accepting proxy votes ends on the 11th of February. I suspect this probably will go out around about that time. So what we do directly after that, we'll email everybody who's eligible to vote, asking if they want to attend the AGM. It's important to note that we need 20 for a quorum. Basically, a quorum means that if you don't reach that level at an AGM, you can't conduct any business. So the meeting stops and you have to reschedule, which is a real pain in the backside. That happened once at one of the Antwerp Arms AGMs that I went to, which meant we had more time in the pub. It was great, but it also meant having gone back the following week to the pub and for the AGM as well. Anyway, what we will do when we ask people if they want to attend is to send out a link to the Eventbrite registration form, where members will need to complete their name, email address and their membership number. We'll close that registration on the day before the AGM, and then on the day of the AGM we'll email an access code to everybody who's expressed an interest to attend. Now that's a personal access code, must not share that. And one of the things that we'll do on the day, as people start to apply to get into the event, from about 6:45, I think we're opening it up, we're going to hold people in a waiting room on Zoom whilst we check your membership details and your bona fides to make sure that you are the person that you say you are. Voting rights are only available to full members and any life members. So you will then be admitted. As I say, your camera and your microphone will be disabled, so you can listen and watch the board and the hosts talk you through what's the business of the AGM. And as I said, if you want to ask questions at any of the appropriate times on the resolution or within the Q&A subsequently, we'll unmute you and turn on your camera. What we'll also do as we hit each of the resolutions, there'll be a pop-up panel which will appear on your screen. That gives you the opportunity to vote, and you'll have three options. You're either for, against, or you abstain from the resolution. And basically behind the scenes, what we do, before the AGM already have totaled up everybody who's sent in proxies. Zoom actually on that voting poll gives you a counter, so it will, once we've closed that resolution's vote, we will then get an answer for the people who have voted on the night. We can add the two together and quite clearly see whether the resolution has been accepted or not, and we can work out final figures behind the scenes when the AGM is finished, and we can then publish those, the actual numbers. But in most cases, I expect, from what I've already seen on the proxy voting, that there's going to be a massive vote against any or all of the resolutions on the night. And I'm saying massive, I mean 200 plus. So I think that extremely unlikely. So it would look likely that all the resolutions will be accepted. So we will know on the night whether the resolutions have been accepted, and we will be able to then continue with the rest of the business and the rest of the Q&A. So basically, as members, sit and wait. If you want to attend, let us know through Eventbrite, and we will then contact you with the Zoom registration details. What we're trying to do is to make sure that you've got a link if people have trouble getting into Zoom on the night. You'll get an email to contact if you do have problems, and we'll try and sort you out behind the scenes. But I think most people now have been in Zoom meetings, and I think that most people know how it works and how it operates. So we've tried to think of everything. it's inevitable. There could be technical problems. It's inevitable. There might be things that we've not thought of. And between now and then, we're going to do a couple of dummy runs with the board just to make sure that everybody knows what their roles are, how it operates, and what, if anything, that we've not thought of between the three of us, you know, that we can resolve before the night. But I'm fairly confident it will work.
Brilliant.
Right.
Yeah, that's really good. Lastly, I think probably on the AGM, but just a brief. We were talking the other day about what happens after the AGM and what happens in regard to resolutions or actions. So just fill us a little bit on that, Pete, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, sure. As far as the nominations and for trust board membership and the reappointment, what we will do is have a scheduled meeting almost soon on, about the week after the AGM, which then decides the posts. Every 12 months we review and say, right, who's going to be chair, who's going to be secretary, who's going to be treasurer, and work out what roles people adopt within the board. Yeah, I said earlier, as well as secretary, I do community and the charity work. What we'll also do is, what I do, one of my jobs is to post the accounts and fill in the form and send it off to the FCA. We'll obviously also post details of the final scores on the doors on our website, and also come back to people who've asked questions that we weren't able to answer on the night.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Thanks, Pete. And I mean, thanks for all that detail. It's incredibly helpful. Before we go, it's always nice when we have other members of the board on, just to find out a little bit more about them. And I'd love to know, just briefly, you know, you as a Spurs fan, you mentioned you've been going a long time.
Long time. Yeah.
Can you tell us maybe your favourite Spurs player, maybe across the years, or indeed, is it Sonny like me today? And what about a favourite Spurs moment?
Yeah. I was thinking about this afternoon. I think most people of my generation, I was lucky enough to see Jimmy Greaves play. And my earliest recollection of seeing Tottenham play was the '62 final on telly. And I was always Jimmy Greaves in the playground. I was the goal hanger. I was the one who slotted the ball away. I was never any good, but I did score goals basically because I goal hang.
If only Pavlyuchenko had been
yeah, my shot wasn't as strong as Pav's though. But also, the very first visit to White Hart Lane, Jimmy Greaves scored the winner. We beat West Ham, April '69. My other hero, again, generational thing, is Stevie P, skipper. We're basically the same age, so as he started playing in the Spurs side was about the time that I started going, so I've seen him progress. I even saw him. One of my earliest visits to a football stadium was to Wembley. Must have been almost straight after the '67 Cup final. It was a schoolboy international, and Stevie P was playing. So I got the programme, and luckily, you know, I've met Steve a couple of times since and got him to sign it for us. But yeah, both Jimmy, I never thought I would ever meet Jimmy and Steve in the flesh. So they're my two great heroes. If best memories, best games, '81 replay will always be a key game. First cup final win that I saw. But also a very personal moment for me that week. It's a fairly long story and probably not for the pod, but my first marriage split up on the day of the first game. So I got home, my wife wasn't there, and that's when I realised that my first marriage had ended. Wow. Suffice to say that I left my home very quickly. She still hadn't come home. And I was queuing up for a replay ticket fairly early on. It's I told Glenn Hoddle this story once, and he pissed himself. He really did. That was my memory of the 81.
A bit more information than we were expecting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's that personal touch, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the 84 final, I think, was the best atmosphere I'd ever seen up White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal night. I don't remember much about the celebrations afterwards, which is odd. I remember dancing all the way back to Seven Sisters up the high road and singing and screaming, but I didn't go to a pub. I think I was with friends, and I think we were rushing to get back home or catch one of the late trains, so we didn't hang around and celebrate. So for celebrations, the whole of, we talk about going to football, but we talk about the whole thing that surrounds Ajax and Amsterdam, the semi-final, second leg. Absolutely phenomenal day. Many reasons. I did a museum. I did some posh eateries. I did some rough and ready bars. I did some rough and ready coffee houses. I went live on ITV London. I went live on BBC Radio 5. And then, from the despair of half time to the absolute elation at full time, and the after party as well in the stadium, where we were locked in for over an hour. Well, I don't think we were. I was probably locked in for half an hour, and then we just stayed there and just sang and partied, and the players and the management and Daniel coming onto the pitch as well. That'll live with me forever. Absolutely incredible. And obviously singing Three Little Birds as well. If you were there,
I have to say, Pete,
when I retired as a head teacher, I sang Three Little Birds to the children. Because they were quite worried about me leaving, but I knew what I was singing it for, and I actually did an assembly with them about never giving up, and did it all around that match.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And that's the thing with Spurs, isn't it? If you don't have the lows, you don't have those ridiculous highs.
That's right.
But I was there, Pete, for the 84 final, but I was 9.
Right.
but what I was going to say, what's amazing about skipper Steve Perryman was that my first Spurs game in 1981, Spurs Man U, he played in that game as well. And you think he was there for one of your first games. It's like, it'll be unheard of now, isn't it, for somebody to play for a football club for that amount of time. But when you saw him in 67 or 69, whenever it was, to my first game in 81, it's just astonishing.
Yeah, incredible, really. Maybe Harry, if he stays with us, might come something approach to it if his ankles stand up to another 5 years of punishment. Who knows? But the days of the one club player who's going to make I've forgotten how many Steve has made, 700 plus appearances, I think. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thanks, Pete. It was really nice to hear those stories at the end. So thank you for that, and thanks for all the information before that. That's why you are our secretary, because you have that information in your head, which is particularly impressive, I have to say. So all that's left is to thank Rachel as always, and Rob as always, and Pete for joining us this evening. I should point you to our January newsletter, which is now on our website. And if you want any more information on our AGM, that's also on our website. So THSTofficial.com. Don't forget, if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, you can also watch this on YouTube. And we'll be back shortly. I think we've got one planned with our co-chair, Martin Cloak, on governance. So we'll see you shortly with that. And hopefully we'll see as many of you as we can virtually, albeit virtually, at our AGM on the 16th of February. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Cheers everyone.
Bye.